Hello, 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 hello. I don't know if people are listening. I don't have a really good. Let's see if I can get better brightness on my screen. Okay, so great earnings call, great earnings numbers. I got a lot to go through. I wanted to thank Earl. 28 days later on Twitter. Love Earl. Earl saying, "Reminder: this was the bad quarter." And the news is pretty good overall, considering what we expected. I think the news is pretty good. So let me get into my sheets here. This is from the earnings. Sorry. This is from the slide deck. We're going to go through the slide deck first. We're going to talk about the earnings call itself afterwards. But I want to note in the top right corner, you see 14,602. That is a big jump from Q3 2021. I was predicting, I think, 13,300, $13.3 billion. So the revenue growth is much, much higher than I predicted. I think it's much higher than other people predicted. I anticipated a 5% increase because of the increase in deliveries compared to, I'm looking at Q3 2021, which is which is up here, and you see 12,057 or 12.05 billion. And if you figure 5% increase for the number of vehicles that increased and a 5% increase for pricing, average selling price, then you would see 13.3 billion in the upper right corner of the screen. And instead we see 14.6 billion. So there was a much bigger jump in revenue than people anticipated in automotive revenue. And then another thing that I predict, I'm going to brag about the things I predicted correctly. So if you go down from the 14,602 and you see that plus 2.3 billion and the 16.9 billion, other revenue jumped. It was 1.4 billion earlier on. It was 1.7 billion. It was 1.7 billion. Then it was 1.9 billion. I was predicting 2.1 billion for other revenue. It actually was 2.3 billion. So the jump from Q3 2021 up here, the jump from Q3 21 up here, 13.75 billion to 16.9 billion is a big jump. So the revenue, I think the real surprise this quarter is the revenue outperforming what everyone expected. That's not what people are talking about. People are talking about the earnings beat over here, $2.27, like 30 plus cents higher. I think it's even 40 cents higher than what Wall Street was predicting. So a big jump in earnings. And the cash number. Cash increased to 18.3 billion. These are all big improvements. This is all great stuff. So you know, it's a tough quarter, right? Because vehicle deliveries are down, compared to the previous quarter, revenues are down, profits are down, all these things are bad, but we had this exogenous event. We had this, what Elon calls it, force majeure, that the government of China shut down the factory for a period, the Shanghai factory for a significant period, and that's Tesla's most productive factory. So with that in mind, we still had reasonably good numbers for the quarter, including profitability, better earnings than expected, better cash pile than expected. Hi, everybody. And then, so then the other thing is the record production rates. I want to get to that. Let me move forward here, just really quick. I gotta move my face out of the way. So, there were things that really hit Tesla. Higher per unit fixed costs in Shanghai due to shutdowns. We hopefully won't see that again this year or in the future. Negative foreign exchange impact. Probably not going to see that in the future. Bitcoin impairment. Probably not going to see that in the future. Won't be as significant. And you can see down here, that they converted 75% of the Bitcoin purchases into fiat currency. They actually made money on their Bitcoin transactions. There's an effect. Because the Bitcoin value dropped, the 25% they still held, they face a Bitcoin impairment. There's a charge against that affects the profits. They still hold the same amount of Bitcoin. Bitcoin will go up, Bitcoin will go down. It's not really a big impact on the company as a whole. But this is just more from the slide deck that I thought you'd want to see. All right, so let's move forward to the operations summary. Where am I putting my head now? Okay, so this is the operations summary. And the critical thing I wanted to notice here is solar deployment was up and storage deployment was up. I predicted that storage deployment would be up. The Megapack factory they said was ramping. So Megapack, now they said in the in the earnings call, they were asked about it, and they said that Megapack and Powerwall are constrained by components. So this, the manufacturing capacity to make a lot more Megapacks and Powerwalls is there, but the components aren't there. I think they're talking about chips or other components. I don't think they're talking about batteries, but I'm not sure. But they're just facing constraints. But still, we saw a jump in Megapack, and that's part of the increase in revenue. The other revenue is, and I think we're going to have another sheet on that down the road that breaks that down. I also think that superchargers, you can see over here at the bottom, I'm doing my best with this. You can see that the superchargers increased 2,500 more superchargers. And my view in the recent video I made, I think that superchargers are becoming a significant source of revenue for Tesla, to the tune of $1 billion a year, and soon to be $2, $3, $5 billion a year or more, maybe even more than that. So when you look at that 2.3 billion from the previous slide, that 2.3 billion up here, that jump, some of that jump is Megapack and Powerwall and increased solar, and some of that jump is probably supercharger revenue. All right, so this was one of the big stories here. This page is a big part of the story. So let me see where I can go here. So number one, you see up here, I'm going to show you another slide in a second. Model S, Model X capacity is 100,000. That's not changed. The 550,000 for Model 3 and Model Y is up 50,000. Hang on, let me see if I can make this smaller so we can compare these. Right. Okay. So this is what it was the previous quarter. This is what the same chart showed the previous quarter. It showed Model S and X at 100,000, Model 3 and Y at 500,000 in Fremont. So that's up 50,000. The big jump, which is not a surprise to anybody who's paying attention to Shanghai, is Shanghai went from greater than 450,000 capacity to greater than 750,000 capacity. If you're following, you know that Shanghai's capacity is really over 1 million, right? And somebody pointed out, one of the analysts pointed out, if you add these numbers up, 650 plus 750 is 15. 650 plus 750 is 1.4 million, plus another 500,000. You're at 1.9 million capacity. Now, Berlin and Texas are both greater than 250,000, and Model 3, Model Y is greater than. We know that Shanghai's capacity is like 1 million, or 1.1 million, or 1.2 million. They were talking about hitting 22,000 a week in Shanghai alone. That's 1.14 million. So they're hitting run rates of 30,000 a week multiple times, means that's a pace for 1.5 million a year. And they're trying to increase that, and they're saying they're going to hit 1.5 million this year, which means that they're hoping to get to 40,000 a week, which is a pace of 2 million a year by the end of this year. So they are nailing it. They are nailing it. You cannot read any of the numbers. Yeah, I'm trying to show you what I can show you, and unfortunately, there's not a good way of doing this. So let me get back here. I'm reading you what I see, and reading to you what I see here. Just let me pop over here now. Oh, and I wanted to mention also right here, this robotaxi and others was future product, right? So now they have identified that they're specifically pursuing robotaxi and others. I don't know whether that means the robovan. I don't know what other products they're talking about. So there's other things coming that they're working on. So future products went to robotaxi and others. So they're going farther on robotaxi and others. We'll see what that means. So Fremont factory made a record number of vehicles in Q2. Opportunities for further production rate improvements. Next generation of 4680 battery cell machinery has been installed in Texas in the process of commissioning. Factory output in Texas continues to grow. Well, more about that when we go through what they said in the call. So, Shanghai ended the quarter with record monthly production level. So Shanghai is hitting it. Now they took a break in July to revamp the Model Y line, which is now revamped and ramping, and they're now taking a break on the Model 3 line. Nobody asked about that. It's kind of interesting. Nobody asked that question. And then Germany is already at more than 1,000 Model Ys in a week using 2170 cells. Expect the production rate to continue improving. In the call, they said that they expect that Berlin and Texas should both hit 5,000 vehicles a week by the end of the year. I think they were iffy about Texas. I think Texas, that may be optimistic for Texas. They're having issues with the ramp. I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know how much of that is 2170 and how much of that is 4680. It sounds like 4680 vehicle production will hit 1,000 a week by the end of the year, and the 2170 production might go there. I'll go through my notes on the call to see if I've got that right. So, right here. There's a really important tech update right here. Is that visible, man? I don't think I got that visible. Let me fix that. Okay. The number of robots they use to make vehicles for the Model S and Fremont is a certain level, for Model 3, and then they keep reducing the number of robots they need to make vehicles. And you can see that Model Y Austin and Model Y Berlin, because they're doing front and rear castings on Model Y in Austin and Berlin, and this is probably, I don't know if they're doing that in Shanghai yet or not, they use dramatically fewer robots, and this means the cost of manufacturing these vehicles becomes a lot lower. So these are all really positive pieces of news. And you can see it, it's actually written. It's actually written over here. The robot count in our body shops and new factories dropped by over 70% per unit of capacity compared to our first iteration of Model 3 body shop. That's not even compared to the Model S. And we will continue to drive simplification further with every new product and every new factory. And they mentioned Cybertruck in the call about that Cybertruck will be even simpler to manufacture. Last thing from the slide deck I want to talk about. Let's see, we're in the process of ramping production at our dedicated Megapack factory. They said in the call that they're component constrained on battery storage. Solar deployments increased. That was good news. I have that. Did I cover that in the? I gotta go back and look at my sheets again. Q2 services and other business returned to positive gross margins. So not only did revenue grow for services and other business, which I think superchargers is a part of that, repairs is a part of that, those returned to positive gross margin. And the supercharger business is increasingly serving both. Supercharger business is growing. I just made a video. Go back and check my channel. I just made a video about the potential for supercharger. I think I was a little bit over optimistic if you base it on the current V3 superchargers. When you take into account the V4 superchargers that are coming, it appears they're going to be 387 kilowatts, which means they're going to charge faster, which means more cars get through, more kilowatt hours charged per hour per day. And as the number of vehicles increases and they start taking other EVs, you're going to see superchargers become a profit center for Tesla. It's not going to compare to vehicles. It's not going to compare to the future robotaxi, but it could add significantly to the success of the company. It's not nothing. So, all right, let's move on to, okay, we're going back. Remember, this was a bad quarter. So, I wanted to talk about some things I saw on Twitter in advance of the earnings call. So Gary Black mentions here, critics will complain about the quality of the beat. Okay, so earnings per share, Tesla beat the prediction. What am I doing here? Tesla, the shadow on my face is annoying me, but I'll get over it. So Tesla beat the projected earnings, and he said the quality of the beat will get complaints. The margins were lower. Well, of course the margins were lower. They had this big hit from Shanghai. 35% per share was due to lower restructuring charge, 20% per share due to higher average selling price, 16 cents a share due to lower R&D SGA, and 10 cents per share due to lower tax rate. So I don't understand. They beat earnings. The quality of the beat. I love Gary, but Gary is channeling Wall Street, right? It's not, Gary is just explaining to us how Wall Street and the media is going to talk down this spectacular news for Tesla, that their earnings were much better than expected. Okay, just really quick, this started with a tweet from Sawyer Merritt about Tesla's near zero debt and big cash pile. And Tim Busby, I don't know Tim, said that credit rating upgrade should be coming any day now. Alexandra, I interviewed Alexandra on the channel, said their credit rating upgrade is so ridiculously overdue. This is something that Alexandra worked on in her career before what she does now. She thought that we should see a credit rating upgrade. Credit rating upgrade would probably be a somewhat of a boost to the stock. I don't think it matters for long term. It matters for short term, that some institutional investors who depend on credit, who only invest based on stocks that have investment grade credit ratings. But long term, so in other words, that could, if that happens, that could be a bump in the short term stock price, but it doesn't have any impact on the long term value of the company. And Sawyer says, I have to imagine we're somewhat close to an upgrade. Who knows when the upgrade comes? I think Alexander is predicting August that we'll see an upgrade. So that should be a bump in the stock in August if it happens. How they cannot raise the credit rating, who knows? But you can't figure out the credit rating industry. All right, so Dave Lee, just, I just wanted to mention it because I love Dave. This is after the sheet came out and the slide deck came out and before the earnings call. Impressive quarter by Tesla, reporting $2.6 billion in non-GAAP profit. Elon and Zach sold 75% of Bitcoin to avoid a major impairment loss. Very smart move. Otherwise, results better than expected. So that's good from Dave. And Stock Talk Weekly, this is an important point, that one of the criticisms of Tesla that was floating around Twitter was that Tesla's free cash flow would have been negative without the Bitcoin sale, and this isn't true. Net operating cash was $2.35 billion, capex of $1.73 billion, free cash flow was $621 million free cash flow. If Bitcoin sale was factored into free cash flow, it would have been much higher. So I just wanted to address that point that you're going to see. All right, so now, let me see. So I just addressed what Jim said. Some people complain that Tesla would have negative earnings if they hadn't sold 75% of Bitcoin. Not true. So, I mean, they had $2.6 billion in profit. I think they sold $800 million in Bitcoin. So that's not true at all. So, all right, let's go here. I want to go through the call. I took notes on my phone because I'm trying to preserve my laptop battery life. My laptop battery is down to 64%, so we should be good. So, June production records, and Elon is predicting a record-breaking second half of the year. Zach also said that they're still aiming for 1.5 million deliveries this year. That is a stretch. It's going to be hard to achieve, but they think they can achieve it. Now, keep in mind, their run rate at 30,000 a week is not enough. That's barely 1.5 million a year, 1.5 million vehicles. So they are expecting significant increase in production, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Shanghai, some increase in Fremont, and then we need Berlin and Texas to ramp. That's it. There was by the way, there was no mention in the call about this. I'm surprised nobody asked the question about the second Shanghai factory. There was talk that they're going to build another factory in Shanghai. I'll get a suntan by the time my battery dies. Yeah. Okay. So Elon said Texas is expected to break 1,000 a week in a few months. This disappointed me. That suggests they're not going to hit 5,000 a week in Texas by the end of the year if they're not expected to break 1,000 a week for a few months. But there was some better news later in the call about that. They have enough 2170 cells for this year. That they don't have a shortage of battery cells for this year. We're fine on that. I'm doing this in I'm doing this in my Model X Plaid. This is not in the Model 3. This is my Model X Plaid. So 4680 cell production. The vehicles with 4680s are not a significant factor in this year's deliveries. It's the 2170s coming out of Texas, the 2170s coming out of Berlin. There was some good news in the call. I don't think I got all the detail about 4680 production in Cato Road, which is the Fremont, California factory where they started 4680 production. And I think that they made some big manufacturing jump in Fremont, and that will be transmitted to Berlin and Texas, and that will help improve it. I need a 4680 for my laptop. Who's the girl? No, this is the wall of a library behind me. Sorry, I'm in front of the Lake Placid Library, so the artwork on the wall of the library is behind me. This was what I thought was big. Was they talked about achieving manufacturing simplicity, and they are aiming to achieve another level of manufacturing simplicity with Cybertruck. So there's going to be a lot with Cybertruck coming next year. That's going to be huge. This is an X Plaid, not an S Plaid. This is a Model X. I'll do a quick. That's the back seat. I got a whole bunch of crap in here. Sleeping in the car tomorrow night on my way to my Tesla service appointment to get a couple of minor things taken care of. My left scroll wheel was not right from the day I got the car, and they had to get the part in, so that's in, and a couple other niggling little details to fix. But it'll all be taken care of, and I'm going to hit the gym while they're fixing it. FSD wide release in the US expected this year. FSD beta will go wide release, so everybody who has FSD should get FSD beta this year. Elon is still confident. He keeps reiterating his confidence in that. It's happened a couple of times. Connor Grant says, will Tesla bot be revealed at AI Day? I think so. I think a early prototype of bot will be revealed, not. And then Elon said AI Day will be amazing. He reiterated that later. There was a question that went to AI Day, and he said, we're not talking about that because I don't want to steal thunder from AI Day. So AI Day is coming. I think that's September. That's going to be huge. This is Zach gave his talk, and he mentioned specifically that Powerwall and Megapack are component constrained. Nobody asked what specific components. I'm guessing it's a combination of chips and battery cells, but it's unclear what he meant by components. So that's. Stop asking when Tesla went $200,000 a share. That's obviously 2032. Okay. A bot could accelerate it, but 2032. They realized the gain on Bitcoin. Did he say that in the call? Oh, I guess he did say that in the call. So they actually realized a gain on their sale of Bitcoin. So that was profitable. The Bitcoin trade was profitable. And Elon pointed out that they sold Bitcoin not because of the lack of confidence in Bitcoin, because they were uncertain about the COVID lockdowns and they had liquidity concerns. And they wanted to make sure they had enough cash in the company to handle any bumps in the road, presumably if the lockdowns went a lot longer than they thought. And specifically noted they haven't sold Dogecoin. I don't think they have that much Dogecoin, but they didn't sell it. I think that was meant to be funny. So Zach is excited about the second half of the year. The Austin and Berlin ramps, that margins are down, and that the Austin and Berlin ramps. Austin and Berlin are right now high until they ramp production. There's costs that are impacting the vehicles that are coming out of those factories. So they're impacting gross vehicle margins. So that's why gross auto margins are down. But they're still pushing to reach 50% growth this year, which would be, I think, close to 1.5 million vehicles. Zach thinks they're still going to reach that target. So now we get to questions. They have more than 18 billion in cash. Look, I don't understand what the liquidity concerns are, but they raised liquidity concerns. It seems like 18 billion is plenty of cash. It's certainly a lot more than a lot of other companies have, but considering the size of the company, this is one of the largest companies in the S&P 500. They need a lot of cash. I mean, Rivian has 18 billion in cash, and they're a tiny company. So there were questions about Chinese manufacturers. What is Tesla doing to stay ahead of Chinese manufacturers? And Elon just said, well, China is the best auto manufacturer in China, but he stressed, and he has said this before, he has tremendous respect for the Chinese vehicle manufacturers, and he thinks that they are more competitive than Western OEMs. That if other companies don't accelerate their technological development, that the Chinese manufacturers will surpass the Japanese and German and American manufacturers, that the Chinese are doing a really good job. He's very impressed with them. There was a question about unified vector space, and Elon said it's not necessary to achieve FSD, it's a slight improvement. He did say that they're confident of improving the frame rate to maybe 36 frames per second. They're certainly going to get more than 24 frames per second, which is the rate that movies show on the movie screen. So improving the frame rate will help makes the car more responsive. I think reduces latency and decision making. Okay. There's a question about how Tesla deals with lowering prices and inflation. Elon says it's all dependent on macroeconomics. He guessed that inflation might decline to the end of this year. There were some other people on the call, Lars, and I'm not sure who else, saying the lithium prices has shot up, but carbon steel and aluminum are trending down. And Elon, if you remember back when Elon said, please mine more nickel, now he's saying, please, entrepreneurs, enter lithium refining. There's a lot of talk about the challenge of refining certain battery minerals, in particular lithium, but I think other battery minerals need a lot of refining investment. And he thinks that right now you would print money opening a lithium refiner. So invest your money, build lithium refinery. If anybody watching this video has the potential to start a lithium refining business, get to it. There's a question about crypto, and Elon basically said it's a sideshow to the sideshow. We don't think about crypto a lot. That was handled pretty short shrift. Let's see. 4680 and structural pack optimization was a question. Elon said structural pack has the potential to get radically better. Drew said, we know it's the right architecture. Drew Baglino. Elon said it will be substantially superior to to other methods of manufacturing. And Drew Baglino said, you don't know how lean you can get until you try a few times. So they've got their first cut at 4680 structural pack, and they can see that it's better than the old method. And they can also see there's a lot of potential for us to optimize this and improve this. So there will be future iterations of structural pack and castings and 46 and implementation of 4680. There's a specific point that Elon said, the future of castings, that the castings may be able to take in more parts. You know, the castings replace a bunch of parts. If the castings can grow and take in more parts, that can reduce the number of welds, reduce the number of parts, makes the vehicle better, makes the vehicle lighter, makes the vehicle lower cost to manufacture. And they also has potential to redesign the rest of the car to take advantage of the castings. That, you know, once you have this structure to the car, it may be easier to make other parts of the car more cost effectively and lighter weight and improvement in other ways. There was a question about the progress of FSD and the loss of Andrej Karpathy, and Elon said there's a team of 120 software engineers in the software AI team. Karpathy's important. He mentioned, and I've actually been saying this, that he basically said Karpathy's going to go back to academia. He didn't quite say it, but it sounded like what he was saying. And that was my prediction, that Karpathy would get a job at a university, probably start his own AI lab or something like that, is my guess. But Elon is confident that of this year that they will solve FSD. He's reiterated this. You know, they are looking at, you know, as I understand it, this is my limited understanding, people inside Tesla's FSD autopilot team are looking at certain measures of improvement of how the software is improving, and they think they're going to get to solving FSD this year. That doesn't mean robo-taxis this year. That they'll get to the point where it's safer than human, or significantly safer than human this year. That'll basically be able to drive without human supervision, but there still will be human supervision for a while after the end of this year. He didn't say that. I'm interpreting. Okay. Nobody talked about the stock split. I'm in the car for a little while longer. Honestly, I could have done this video at the cabin, but my Starlink gets obstructed every couple minutes, and I decided not to cut down a tree. There's a tree I could cut down that would give my Starlink unobstructed access, but I decided not. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, so I just didn't think it was necessary. So, 4680 ramp. Drew Baglino said they're ramping 4680. He expects to achieve 1,000 vehicles a week of, I think what he meant was 4680 structural pack Model Ys from Giga Texas by the end of the year. It wasn't clear. That's the way I heard it. That's the way I interpreted what I heard. I think he said it kind of quickly. He said Kato output, that's the 4680 factory in California, is growing 35% per month. So that's really radical growth in production at Cato Road, which means more 4680 cells being produced. The faster you increase 46, now the Cato Road does not have as many lines. Texas is going to have a lot more lines. So I think Texas will be 10 times as big, and Berlin cell production will be 10 times as big as Cato Road. So the future of 4680, once they start producing 4680s in volume at Texas and Berlin, is going to be huge. Not to mention that Panasonic's going to be making 4680s, and LG Chem's going to be making 4680s as well. And he said that Texas will exceed Cato output by the end of this year. That's again because Texas, I think, has 10 times as many battery cell lines as Cato Road. The potential for it's a bigger factory. It's got more room for more production. There was a question about silicon. There's 1,600 unique pieces of silicon in each car. It's more stable on the latest generation of chips. They've grown cell production. They don't see any major problem with components. Zach said Q2 is the biggest increase in costs. I lost track. I don't remember what that was about. I'm sorry. There was a question about when Cybertruck will be available. Elon said he hopes delivery middle of 2023. Thought he said production middle of 2023, so before. So I think he's being overly optimistic. Then there's the theory that they're sandbagging Cybertruck and it's coming sooner. I don't know what to believe about Cybertruck. Pierre Farragut, my favorite investment analyst, asked about 4680 and structural pack again, the technology that exists today versus battery day, and he asked about Model Y being software limited, because a lot of people, the structural pack 4680 Model Y, a lot of us think that it actually has more range than they're selling, than they're saying, that it's being software limited and it really has more range. And Drew said they're not holding back. He said simplicity, their focus has been on simplicity and scale during the ramp. They're planning to layer in more technology in the future. They're trying to get 4680 ramped at the technology that they have, and once they have 4680 cell production ramped, then they can work on layering in more technology to improve battery energy density and all these other things. And he specifically said we're not holding back. So if Drew is responding to that point, I think he's saying that the 4680 structural pack Model Y that's already out and people have is not software limited. I love Drew, but I'm not sure I believe him on that. I think the evidence indicates it's likely that the 4680 Model Y has more battery capacity than they're saying, but we'll see. Elon said they're making rapid progress. They want to get to higher volume and higher reliability as their first priority. And Drew said they made a major advance in dry battery electrode at Cato last quarter. That, I think he was talking about cathode. Yeah, there's cathode and anode in the battery. Limiting factor thinks that they're only doing dry battery electrode for anode. It sounds like they are doing dry battery electrode for the cathode as well. The battery that Jordan from Limiting Factor has, I think, was a few months old, so it may be that there's something changed here. Am I sleeping well? Yeah, I'm sleeping fine. And Drew said a lot of the higher tech. So there was talk, I guess maybe the question related to some higher technology that people are working on. He said a lot of the higher technology ideas that people have are not scalable, which means you can't manufacture them at scale. So they're focusing on what can we manufacture at scale, and then once we are able to manufacture at scale, let's see what other technology we can layer in and manufacture that at scale. So that's what's going on there. Farragut had a follow-up question: How much of the growth is secured by long-term contracts and other measures, and what's the status of Tesla lithium supply? Drew, I'm going to go through some other stuff, but Drew said there is no problem in supply of lithium or other battery materials for the next 2 years. So there shouldn't be a battery constraint for the next 2 years if I'm hearing Drew right. Elon says they see constraints in refining battery materials. I think this is long-term. And lithium refining in the anode and cathode refining challenge. That's why Tesla is building their own cathode production at Giga Texas. Elon has said this before. He said the future leans towards lithium iron phosphate and lithium iron phosphate plus manganese, which would probably give a little bit more energy density to lithium iron phosphate. I think we're going to be seeing, somebody's going to be making, Elon has mentioned lithium iron phosphate with manganese more than once. So I think we're going to be seeing some kind of lithium iron phosphate with manganese battery soon. I don't know if it's been in the research, but I'm guessing that's going to be higher energy density and there's going to be some value add there. Drew, I think, mentioned, I don't know if it was Drew or Elon mentioned that lithium iron phosphate refining for the cathode is easier than for the nickel-based batteries. So, okay. And Drew said that they are working on lithium refining themselves. You know, if they are concerned that others will not ramp up lithium refining, so Tesla is working on lithium. If there's a problem in the supply chain and nobody else is going to solve it, Tesla is going to solve it for themselves. Rosner from Deutsche Bank asked about demand pressures, and they basically laughed this question off. There's no macro impact on demand. There's some trivial impact on demand. Elon says demand is not an issue for many months. There's no demand problem. There's a production problem, supply problem, production problem. There's no demand problem. Rosner asked about the 1.9 million capacity that's shown. Let me pull this up really quick. Where was that? The 1.9 million, when you add the numbers above my head, the current 100, 550, 750, that adds up to 1.9 million. Rosner asked, how quickly can you fill it? Elon said we're hoping to exit the year at 40,000 vehicles a week. 40,000 vehicles a week would be more than 2 million vehicles a year production rate. That would indicate that, number one, they're hoping to hit close to 1.5 million this year, and they'll start next year at 2 million, and they're going to be ramping. So, you know, can they hit 3 million next year? I think they can. We'll see. And Zach reiterated Elon's 40,000 a week by the end of the year. So that was, I thought that Elon was being overly optimistic, and then Zach backed him up. That's a really good sign. Again, assuming there's no other shock event, like another COVID lockdown, shutdown, like some other, force majeure, I think Elon refers to it. Hopefully we're done with the force majeure events and things will continue to grow. Elon said we've had many 30,000 car weeks already. And he projected that Austin and Berlin would be at 10,000 per week by the end. So 5,000 per week for Austin and Berlin by the end of 2022 and 10,000 per week by the end of 2023. I think that's pessimistic because that doesn't include, I don't think that includes Cybertruck production. So if Cybertruck starts ramping, that adds more to Austin. Okay. Beta pricing, Elon expects to raise the price of FSD when FSD beta goes into wide release, which will be sometime later this year. There's a question about supply chain, about contaminants in the refining materials, and Elon said contaminants are not a factor. They just dismissed that question very quickly. Tony Sacconaghi asked them to elaborate on demand, and Elon again said, we don't have a demand problem. We're trying to reduce our backlog. We have so much excess demand. Sacconaghi asked about Elon's personal role in the company. This was an important question. A lot of people wonder, how long is Elon going to stay with Tesla? And Elon's basically said he will work at Tesla as long as, I'm going to paraphrase it, as long as he can make a difference. As long as his presence contributes to advancing the technology, advancing sustainability, Elon's going to stay with the company. I never observed anyone drinking a beer while podcasting. I'm not drinking a beer. Okay. There's an analyst named Stein who asked about Dojo, and Elon said he asked about Dojo and some other technical stuff that relates to AI, and Elon said he didn't want to steal thunder from the AI day. And then Stein asked about Tesla making their own chips, and there was a fairly detailed answer from Elon and others that they don't intend to make chips. They're working with key suppliers. Drew Baglino said there's a lot of custom silicon in the vehicles where there's a technology advantage. In other words, if Tesla figures out we can make our vehicles better with custom chips, then we're gonna get our suppliers to make us custom chips. And the chip shortage, Elon said, forced Tesla to reduce the number of chips in the cars, which ultimately improves the cars and improves manufacturing. And Drew said that they're aiming for more function and fewer chips. And there was talk about how great the software team is. So I'm done with my notes. So let me look at the questions here. Sorry, give me a second here. Let me see what if you have questions, and fire them up in the chat now. 2 million run rate by the end of the year, exactly. What did Elon say about the 3 new factories? Elon did not say anything about new factories. No one asked him about new factories. I did not see the Say Technologies email early. Sometimes I see the Say Technologies email right away, and I'm able to get my question, but I didn't see it, so I didn't get my question in. I probably would have asked that question. Fired Up Phil asks if I'm sleeping well. I'm sleeping great. I probably won't sleep well. I'll sleep well tonight. I probably won't sleep well tomorrow night because I'll be sleeping in the car. But I'll sleep well the next 2 nights because I'll be sleeping in the house. Let's say, some say the final Cybertruck design will be revealed in August at an event. I think if they were going to reveal the final Cybertruck design, I don't know why they would reveal it in August. I guess it could be at the shareholder meeting. Maybe that's what you mean, Jim? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe AI Day, but it would make sense if they revealed it at AI Day along with Hardware 4. But Jim Whitehead says he invented the term Elon time. I don't know if you invented that, but I'll take your word for it. Elon seemed pretty confident and relaxed this time. I liked Elon's point that he's on the call when there's bad news. He won't be on the call when there's good news. I'm okay with... John asked, do I like my studio still in the car? I definitely prefer my old situation making videos. I don't like being in the car. I think it's frustrating. It's challenging in a lot of different ways, but I think it turns out, and the videos turn out okay. How long will General Motors and Ford survive if they don't innovate and catch up? Really, it's not about catching up to Tesla. It's catching up to the Chinese manufacturers. I think Elon is saying BYD and XPeng and Neo Global Motors, that they are very innovative. They are really making progress. There's probably 1 or 2 other Chinese manufacturers that are doing really well. And the idea that GM and Ford and Toyota and Volkswagen watch out Tesla, no. They need to watch out for the Chinese manufacturers passing them if they're not already past them. They got to worry about a lot more than Tesla. I'm just looking at your comments and questions here. Tesla production estimates for 2023. When will next factory be announced? Where? So they didn't say anything about that. Look, they said they expect to be at a run rate of 40,000 vehicles a week by the end of the year. And they expect Texas and Berlin to ramp to 10,000 a week by the end of 2023. So if you do, and they're going to be at 5,000 a week. So if you do some math there, you're going to say, well, you're going to get an extra 10,000 a week from each of those. That's 50,000. That's 2.5 million run rate at the end of the year. And I think that's sandbagging, because Shanghai is going to grow. They've massively sandbagged Shanghai. And Fremont's going to grow a bit, and then we'll see if there's another Shanghai factory coming, because I thought we'd heard that there was another Shanghai factory coming. Let's see. They didn't talk about robotaxi or van in the call. What do I think the new products Elon alluded to are? I'm not sure. I don't remember hearing that. I'm not sure where. Why did Tesla sell almost all Bitcoins? They sold their Bitcoins because of concerns about liquidity after the Shanghai lockdowns. Next gen 4680 machinery. Yeah, I think that they're getting ready to produce 4680 cathodes at the cathode factory building that they're building right now. I don't know if that's a reference to the cathode production or if it's a reference to something inside the building where they take the cathode material and make the battery that way. I'm not sure what that meant. It'll be interesting to see. I bet Dave Lee is going to interview James Douma soon, and we're going to hear James Dauma's take on all this. Will 2170 battery packs out of Austin be structural? No. 2170 is not a structural battery. Calvin Dodge says, looks like you were closer on the numbers than the vaunted financial experts. I was definitely closer on revenue, and I underestimated revenue, and I was high. So, okay, let's go down to the bottom here and see if there's anything new. Did he mention profit? They did not talk about superchargers at all. They certainly didn't talk about profitability on superchargers. Can we get a tour of the cabin and property in general? I mean, tour of the cabin. It's like a small room. I couldn't even get it. I don't think my camera would even show the inside of the cabin. I need like a super wide lens. The cabin is tiny inside. Why do I have to make videos in the car? So I would have made the video at the cabin, but my Starlink is blocked by a tree about 5 to 20 seconds every 5 minutes or so. So a live stream would not work well with that. You know, I don't mind using it that way when I'm on Twitter or even on Clubhouse. So I miss a little bit here and there. I'm not cutting down it's a little tree. I could cut it down. I decided not to cut it down. I don't know that I'm going to be using Starlink at the cabin much in the future. If I do, no big deal. Maybe I'll cut the tree down then. I'm planning on taking Starlink with me to Canaveral when I locate in Canaveral. So the property in general, it's a 300 by 150. It's a 150 foot wide by 300 foot deep lot that is mostly covered in shrubbery and trees. Shrubbery, you know, whatever, foliage, whatever. It's a lot of plant matter. And there's a winding trail that the car drives back to the cabin, or you can walk back to the cabin. Eventually, I'm hoping to put a diagonal. I'm hoping to clear some land, put a diagonal in so I can do a 100-yard shooting range, and maybe clear some land and build a larger cabin or my solar farm apartments or something like that. Who will get into lithium mining processing business? You know, if entrepreneurs are listening and they're capable, they'll do it. How bad will the Blazer EV sell? I haven't looked at the EV Blazer yet. I don't think we know enough about the EV. That's the Chevy Blazer electric vehicle. I don't think we know enough about that to comment on that. You think Elon winked about a delivery vehicle once? I don't think that they're focusing on that. I don't think the scale of the delivery vehicle market is big enough for Tesla to focus on that yet. I think the idea of the robo-van, you know, that's like highly capable of having a lot of different formats would make a lot more sense, because then you would be able to make it in volume and apply it in different ways. What's my take on the V4 charging capability? I did a tweet on the V4. I don't know if I can find my tweet. It appears that the version 4 supercharger, which is coming soon, looks like, is 387 kilowatts. It is about 10 inches taller, 8 or 10 inches taller than the current supercharger, and it's about 5 inches narrower. And it weighs about, I couldn't tell, it either weighs 10 pounds more than the current one, or it weighs 50 pounds, 60 pounds more than the current one. It wasn't clear. The current one apparently weighs 140 pounds, and the next one weighs either 150 or 200. There were different information on the same page that I saw. If analysts see Twitter deal as a negative for Tesla, why not count SpaceX success as a positive? Twitter has nothing to do with Tesla. I don't understand why people think the Twitter deal has anything to do with Tesla. Tesla is about manufacturing vehicles and and manufacturing energy products, storage products, and solar. And the Twitter deal has nothing to do with Tesla. Tesla long-term value is driven by production of vehicles, production of energy storage, production of solar, installing all this stuff, and then getting FSD running and maybe bot. Twitter has nothing to do with Tesla's long-term value. Short term, does Elon have to sell a few more shares, and does that depress the stock price a little bit? I suppose, but who cares? I'm not a short-term guy. I don't care about the short term. All right, so I don't see any more questions. What's my take? Oh, so Beacon, I have a video about superchargers and the potential for revenue and profit for Tesla. I just made that video recently. Mark says, when you become very rich from Tesla, will your life change, and how? I would say my life has already changed. My life has already changed in a variety of ways. But I don't actually... I live cheap. I don't have a desire to own a yacht or live in a big house. I already lived in a big house. I'm planning to live in a much smaller home in the future. I'm driving a Model X Plaid, so I think you could say that that Tesla's success has altered what kind of vehicle I drive. Right? I'm sitting in a Model X Plaid that I own. So, I mean, I financed it, right? But I can afford to make the payments. So, but you know, I actually don't want the Model X Plaid. I'm hoping Cybertruck comes sooner. I want to sell the Model X Plaid and get the Cybertruck. I've sometimes thought about selling the Model X Plaid and getting a Model 3 long range, but it would take so long to get a Model 3 long range that it wouldn't make sense. I really love them. Just because I love all Teslas, I really think the Model 3 long range, the Model 3 long range is a spectacular car. Like that car, that particular vehicle is spectacular. Model 3 standard range plus is not bad, but I do a lot of road trips, so the Model 3 long range is to me the dream road trip car if you can't afford a Model S. I have no opinion on what Tesla's stock price will be tomorrow. I don't make short-term stock price predictions. I would hope it would go up, but Wall Street always goes the opposite direction of what I think, and it's like predicting elections. I can't predict those either. Did they mention anything about where the energy for superchargers comes from, battery, solar installations, and superchargers? They didn't mention it. As far as I can see, most superchargers are running off the grid. Whatever the local grid is getting its energy from, that's what supercharger is getting its energy from. I don't think there's any effort. I think there will in the long term be an effort to install solar at superchargers, but right now they're busy ramping solar for residential. Jim Whitehead, it's how you become a millionaire, live cheap and invest in a great stock or real estate. Check out the book, The Millionaire Next Door. I read that book a long time ago. I cook for myself. I rarely eat out. I like eating out, but I like to cook for myself. If you shop at the grocery store and eat food that you make yourself, honestly, I like my own cooking. And if you live cheap and you live in a small place, you don't live in something bigger than you need, and the car is an extravagance, but the theory behind the car is that I'm going to sell it at a profit. So this is an investment rather than consumption, right? That's what I tell myself. So what changes if I become very rich? Nothing. I guess it depends on how rich you're talking about, right? If all of a sudden I'm worth, $50 million, I don't know. Like for my personal life, I don't see much changing. I like cooking for myself. I don't particularly want to go out to restaurants that much. I don't need to live in a large space. I already travel a lot. I don't know what's going to change. My kids will do better. It'll be better for my kids. My kids' future will be secured. Yeah, it's sort of like, I grew up not poor. I grew up, upper middle class by the standards of the day. But if you look at how I lived as a child, we didn't have that much. We just didn't have that much. And I still identify with that lifestyle. And that was a good lifestyle. I was happy. I don't need all this crap. I don't need like latest video game. I don't need to have 4 or 5 different streaming services. I don't need a Starbucks coffee every day or 5 Starbucks coffees every day. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. A lot of things that a lot of people spend money on, I don't spend money on. So, I don't know if I can write off the car as a deduction if I'm going to make a profit on it later. I'm going to make a profit on the car next year. I don't know if that works. Oh, what do I think Elon will do with the FSD price? Well, right now it's 12,000. My guess is he's going to raise it to 15,000. It's possible he raises it to 20,000. I'm just guessing. I can help you. Well, no, I think the other thing I would do with the money is I would invest it in my own businesses, right? I'm planning on building the pod car. I'm going to be investing my money and more money in the pod car business. I have the solar farm apartments idea I really want to build. So yeah, if I have an extra, $10 million lying around and I can throw $1 million into this business and $1 million into that business, that's what I want to do. I want to build something. And of course, I want to hire a surrogate or a sugar baby to help me have kids. Michael Mobley says he owns a Model 3 long range, absolutely loves it. My brother is the first posthumous award of FSD beta that I know of. For those who don't know, my brother passed away recently. He had a FSD Model 3 long range. Didn't get beta while he was alive. Beta was awarded after he died. I don't think it was because he died, but stop being so cheap and go eat at the Sizzler. I had a $1 hamburger at McDonald's today. Because I'm living in this limbo where it's not so easy to cook it. It's not that it's hard to cook at the cabin, it's hard to clean the dishes at the cabin. So I had a $1 hamburger at McDonald's today, and I broke down today and I had the chocolatey pretzel McFlurry. I don't know if I've ever had a McFlurry before, but I had the chocolatey pretzel McFlurry, and it was fantastic. I blew my budget, I blew my diet. I did a long workout this morning, so that makes up for it. Timothy asked about my Cybertruck. So I have 2 different Cybertruck orders. I ordered in the first hour, and I have Cybertruck ordered with, I think, $7,000 FSD price, and then I have a second Cybertruck order at $8,000 FSD. That was later. Why do I not want to be more engaged in angel investing space? I love the idea of investing. I want to do so Yehuvi asks why I'm not an angel investor. I like doing my own startup. I think I want to be the entrepreneur, and I want to fund my own entrepreneurship. Not that I wouldn't invest in some startup if somebody came to me with a good startup, but I don't have the capital right now free to invest in somebody else's startup when I want to focus my capital on my own startups. If I get to the point where I have so much capital that I can't fund that I have too much to fund my own startups, then maybe I would look at funding other startups. Keep the car a year, amortize it. You get a long-term cap gain from its depreciated basis. I'll talk to my accountant about that. It sounds good to me. How can you go wrong with Tesla? Okay, $1. Yeah, the hamburgers at McDonald's are $1 right now, and I normally get the bacon double cheeseburger, which is like $2.50 or something like that. What is it called? Some kind of bacon McDouble. That's what I normally get, but $1 cheeseburger, and I'm trying to reduce calories, so a hamburger is only 250 calories. I'm trying to minimize my calories. The real story here is I'm trying to lose weight, and I'm working out at the gym so that I can beat Ellie in space at a pull-up and chin-up competition, because I lost to her badly last time, and I can now do a pull-up, and I can now do a chin-up, but I want to be able to do enough of them to beat Ellie. What do I think the standard Cybertruck price will be? Good question. So I think the initial Cybertruck will be the quad motor, and I think that's going to be $100,000. It may be more than $100,000. I mean, honestly, it's going to be a better vehicle than this Model X that I'm in now. Quad motor instead of tri-motor. I think they may pump that baby up to over $100,000, and I will pay it. When they get down to a dual motor, I mean, they said 50,000. The cost of manufacturing is going to be lower if the supply chain gets back to normal, inflation comes down a little bit. I still think they're going to have to raise the price some, so maybe they'll raise it to 60 or 70,000. But that just depends on what happens in the overall market. It's like a macro thing. No, I think it's a special Chris, I think it's a special right now for the hamburger for $1. I don't think it's a normal price. Maybe just at the restaurant I'm at, but I think that might be a special everywhere. Wawa, by the way, has a special. I think it's a snack, like a bag of chips and a Coke for like $2. And their sandwich is like $5 or something. Yeah, I could live in Cybertruck too. Yeah. All right. So let's see. How long have I been going? I've been going for about an hour. I think we covered everything. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please check out my other videos. Please support this channel on the Locals platform as a YouTube channel member or on Patreon. Thank you to the moderators, Jim Whitehead, I see in the chat. I don't know if Mark Plott's there. Mark Plott's usually there. And please like this video, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you so much for watching.